I just quickly want to say, I straight up don't have a favorite single one movie, so I do have, however, three, sort of like a trifecta, holy trinity type thing, of my three favorite films that kind of, whenever I watch one, that becomes my favorite film, and whenever I watch the other one, that becomes my favorite film. And those three are The Prestige, which I'm obviously reviewing today, Inception, and The Dark Knight, which I will be reviewing soon enough. And without further ado, let's do it. The Prestige, or the world's most underrated, underappreciated masterpiece, is directed by none other than Christopher Nolan, and it stars Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine, Rebecca Hall, Andy Serkis, the late great David Bowie, may he rest in peace, and also this lawyer guy who kind of reminds me of Billy Crudup. And it's about two young magicians who, through certain circumstances, end up being kind of rivals and always trying to like beat each other and make the ultimate magic show. Actually, the IMDb synopsis is actually a lot better than what I just said. Let me read it to you. Two stage magicians engage in a competitive one-upmanship in an attempt to create the ultimate stage illusion. That's much better than what I just said. That's a pretty accurate summary of what the film is about. But trust me, it's a lot cooler than it actually sounds. And this is, in my opinion, the most underrated, one of the most underrated films of all time, and it's definitely Christopher Nolan's, in my opinion, one of his better films. Top 3 definitely, but it's the film that nobody really talks about. You know, when you look at Christopher Nolan, people always tend to think The Dark Knight and Inception. In fact, for all like the posters for Dunkirk, it says from the director of Inception and the Dark Knight trilogy and Interstellar. It doesn't say from the director of The Prestige, which is kind of shocking because The Prestige is one of the best films ever made, in my opinion, and it is definitely one of the most underrated films ever made. Nobody really talks about this film. Most people haven't even seen it, most people haven't even heard of it, which is kind of insane considering the director, the cast, just the talent behind it. So first off, I want to talk about Christopher Nolan's direction and his script that he wrote with his brother Jonathan Nolan. It's insane. The story of this film is absolutely amazing, and one of the things that I thought was really smart that they chose to do in this film was to tell the story in a non-linear fashion, because this film, the actual film, starts off towards the end of these two characters' story, and it kind of flashes back to when they were still friends, and the film kind of goes through pretty much their entire lives and careers as magicians. Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale I'm talking about. I really liked how they started off towards the end, because the ending has a lot more depth to it, and there's a lot more gravity, and it just shows that there is actually something to be excited about, as opposed to just starting off at the beginning, which, let's be honest, the beginning of their story isn't the most exciting thing in the world. But I love how the film is cut and edited, because, to be honest, on this channel I don't really talk about how a film is edited in my reviews, but I kind of have to talk about it in this film, because the way that this film is cut together is absolutely amazing. And a lot of that is due to the fact that it is in a non-linear fashion. At the beginning of the film, by the way, the first line of the film is absolutely amazing. It's kind of like Gone Girl, in which the first line in the film, and pretty much the last line, I think. I should know because I rewatched it last night, but you know, one of the last lines in the film is the same as the first line, which is, "Are you watching closely?" Which, by the way, is a really cool line, and like Gone Girl, they mean two completely different things at the beginning and at the end of the film. It really does a good job of setting up the story and what you can expect. And also, in the opening scene, essentially, Michael Caine, his character, is talking about how there are 3 stages to a magic show or a magic trick, and you know, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and the end, which is called The Prestige, is the most important part. And I love how in the magic show sequences, they actually do this. They actually show the beginning, the middle, and the end, and they intercut it with both the characters performing and practicing for the magic show, which is really smart, and they cut and edit it in a really, really good way. And also, something that I really love about this film is just how incredibly simple it makes the films feel, because this is a really, really complex story with a lot of different elements being weaved in and out, and a lot of different character arcs, and there's just so much going on. But Christopher Nolan makes the film feel so incredibly focused that everything else is just drowned out, and you're just locked onto the film. The film has your 100% concentration, and the film is just so incredibly compelling, and even though it is complicated, it comes off as so simple because of how much you're paying attention to it, and that's really, really impressive. Also, this film has that rare quality of being actually rewarding after you rewatch it multiple times, because each time you watch it, you actually pick up something new. And one of the best things about this film is the rivalry between Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman, which I will get into later. But you know, in those rivalry movies like, I don't know, Rush or Civil War, you kind of pick your side and who you support and who you want to win. But in this film, I definitely found myself picking sides, but not in the way that you would expect, because the first time I saw this film, without knowing what happened, I was definitely on Hugh Jackman's side. But when I saw the film for the second time, I was on Christian Bale's side. And after I saw the film last night, to make notes for this review, I kind of found myself supporting Christian Bale, but kind of also Hugh Jackman. And if you've seen the film, then you know what I mean. I will get into spoilers a bit later on, though, because I really want to talk in depth about this film. But just for now, I'm going to leave it spoiler-free till towards the end. Now, what I haven't talked about are the performances. Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman are both incredibly Oscar-worthy in this film. In fact, every single actor gives a career-high performance in this film. But I just want to talk about Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman first, because these are two really big actors, and when this film came out, they were relatively well known, okay? This film came out between Dark Knight and Batman Begins, and Hugh Jackman had already been playing Wolverine for a while, so they're both pretty well-established actors, but, I mean, they really did blow me away with their performances in here. And you know, like, most films, you know, like, at the back of the DVD, when you buy a DVD or Blu-ray and it says, "This film blows me away." In this case, it's actually true, because it truly did blow me away, both in the performances and just everything about the film, and the ending, which, again, I will talk about later. And both Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale's characters go through such an emotional journey, and I love how this film deals with the idea of obsession and what that can do to someone trying to be better than another person and not sort of just leaving it alone, and that's just so incredibly powerful. And I really like that about the film, because most films, they just kind of, everything's so on the surface, whereas this film really does delve deep into both the characters, the story, and just everything, and its attention to detail and its care is so incredibly commendable. The rest of the actors, Michael Caine gives a surprisingly amazing performance. I mean, Michael Caine is good in pretty much everything, but in this film, he's just extra good. Scarlett Johansson is amazing. And just, in fact, all the actors are amazing. And also, this film does a really, really good job of suggesting and foreshadowing certain events. If you watch the film the first time, you might not pick it up, but if you see the film for the second time, you'll understand exactly what I mean. Now, this is where I'll get into spoilers. For example, you know that scene earlier in Christian Bale's storyline, and he's doing that bird trick, and the kid's like...
Look, see? He's alright, he's fine. Look at him.
But where's his brother?
That's actually kind of like alluding to the fact that Christian Bale, you know, at the end is like his twins and stuff. And it's just really, really good. Also, there's this one scene in the prison, which I'll show you now.
I'll open my hand, get your attention, ask, are you watching closely? Maybe a magic word or two. And then I'll be gone.
How do you get so famous then, eh?
Magic.
That scene doesn't need to be in the film, but it just kind of adds an extra layer to the character development, and it's just such a satisfyingly fun scene. And I mean, just the foreshadowing, like I said, and the suggesting is really cool. Which brings me to the ending, which is one of my favorite movie endings of all time. It is incredibly satisfying. In fact, all the character arcs, like Hugh Jackman's relationship with Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman's relationship with Michael Caine, each character, you know, they interact with different characters throughout the film, and each of their relationships is completed in an incredibly satisfying way. And it doesn't come off as pretentious, because this film is almost 2.5 hours long. But it doesn't feel like that, because even though this film takes its time, it doesn't go for like cheap tricks or anything like that. It takes its time to build tension and anticipation. The ending of this film felt so incredibly satisfying, and yes, there is a plot twist, sort of a reveal, and it is amazing. Like I said, this film truly blew me away. And I know that some people will say that this film has certain plot conveniences, but I do think that this film kind of has the same thing as Blade Runner, in the fact that it's kind of like a flawed masterpiece. It's not perfect, but the good things kind of are so good that they cancel out all the bad things. And sometimes when your film is this good, and you know, people say, okay, there are plot holes, I just don't care anymore, because this film is that good. And guys, The Prestige is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated, one of the most underappreciated, one of the best films ever made. And I'm gonna give The Prestige an incredibly well-deserved, satisfyingly good A+. guys, thank you as always for watching. Please stay tuned for my next reviews, Dark Knight, Inception. Like I said, this is my holy trinity, and it's going to be a lot of fun reviewing those films as well. Thank you as always for watching. Thank you.